You are listening to Second Saga. Today's feature is An Eveningstar in the Jungle by Stefan Budansew. Shh, I hear something. I raised my slender hand. Instantly, the lute's and accompanying song-like voice stopped. Our small party drew to a halt. What do you hear, Lai? The question came behind me. I didn't answer, instead crouching down to study the ground. We had been trekking through what I was told is called jungle. The trees were nothing like the oak spire trees I had grown up with. These were lower and had numerous vines and broad leaves obscuring the view and hampering our progress. The dirt had changed. I picked up a handful and let the stone chips fall through my fingers. It looks like now she wants to play in the dirt, came a snide, high-pitched voice, no longer song-like. I didn't need to look up to know how this would play out. Dakrith would reach back to swat Ilian for sassing. The tiny rogue would duck out of the way. These antics had been going on for days. No, weeks. I let the gravel fall and looked out into the unfamiliar trees. Do you hear anything or not, Leandra? Mariko's voice was slightly strained, trying to ignore Dakrith and Ilian behind him. We're close, I said at last, taking a handful of gravel and turning to Mariko. While he did not like going by his heralded title, Sir Mariko was a knighted hero of the Golden Dale lands. Unfortunately, his full armor and horse would have been impractical in the jungle and had been left behind at an inn. He still bore the golden circle of the Dale lands on his armored breastplate and forged into the crossbar of his sword. I was drawn to his nobility and sense of justice, not to mention his sense of adventure. That's why I was along, and why Mariko was leading us. What do you have there? Dirt? He asked. I opened my hand up, explaining. No, look at the stones. These were ground up. This isn't natural. I think we may have found the settlement. That comment was even enough to cause the mage and the rogue to pause. And suddenly, all of the birds ceased their squawking. All of the eyes were on me, and the jungle was eerily silent. I think the heat has gotten to you, Dakrith said, although his eyes were narrowing to look around us, as if he could also sense the change in the jungle. Ilian, on the other hand, seemed oblivious. She commented with a frown. This doesn't look like no settlement I've ever seen before. There isn't even a tavern. Dakrith pushed to the front. You might be onto something. He turned to look at Mariko. The party leader nodded to the unasked question. Dakrith pushed the robes back from his pale skin and looked upwards, his eyes rolling back into his head as he started to murmur arcane words. I felt a shiver pass through me and took a step back. Magic always made me nervous. The air felt thick, and not just with the humid tropical air. I felt the hairs gathering at the back of my neck. Suddenly, Dakrith gasped out and nearly collapsed, pointing ahead. I had sensed it too, as I whirled my bow up with a notched arrow. The branches of the trees pushed inward, and a large furry beast burst into view, letting out an inhuman screech as my first arrow landed in its shoulder. The beast charged as I landed 2 more arrows in its body. I was yanked to the side just in time as the charging beast barreled through where our party once stood on the path. I turned in Mariko's arms to look him close in the face to express my gratitude. Thanks for the save. I felt my breath catch in my chest for a moment. And just for a moment, I forgot the screeching monster. Dakrith had dove to the opposite side of the path, disappearing into the underbrush. Ilian just jumped straight upwards, vaulting over the creature. While she was in the air, she cried at Dakrith. What in the 4 realms is that? Landing behind the creature. The creature looked like a lion. If a lion was 6 feet tall and had the head of a hawk, it turned around, arrow shafts breaking off in the foliage. Its black eyes scanned our group, aware and wary of our scattered party. Lightning suddenly arced out from the foliage from which Dakreth had risen, narrowly missing Ilian and striking the creature. The beast let out a mighty roar and charged at the mage. Ilian turned to yell at Dakreth for how close the blast was, but instead was knocked aside by the charging beast. Mariko broke his attention from me to look at the charging beast. I too was brought out of the moment. I regained my footing and reached back for an arrow. Empty. They had all fallen out of my quiver when I was knocked aside. Mariko didn't wait. He vaulted forward, raising his shield to slam into the shoulder of the beast. As they both fell to the side, his hand drew back on his sword and stabbed forward, the blade disappearing into the tough hide of the creature. The beast let out a long, strangled screech as it was defeated. Mariko turned and smiled gently at me. Thanks for the assist. Yeah, assist. I barely did anything. With the creature not moving, it gave me a chance to look at the unnatural monstrosity more closely. I've never seen anything like it. That can't be a normal beast. I've never heard of anything like it. That's because it's not. Ilian spoke up, and for once, Dakreth backed her up. It's a lionhawk. It's an unnatural, magical chimera of beasts. It must have escaped from the dungeons, Dakreth explained as our party reformed on the path. I took the lead, and soon again paused, pointing out broken features in the undergrowth where the jungle had overgrown buildings. An entire settlement. Mariko investigated one of the crumbling walls of the buildings closer. Are you sure this is the settlement we're looking for? This looks like centuries of growth. I looked at our mage, as he was the one knowledgeable about this, but Dakreth had his head tilted back, and his eyes were milky white. He was casting another spell. The party slowed and waited, Ilian pulling out her lute and returned to strumming. I took the time to examine the crumbling walls more closely. The mage and I came to the same conclusion at different times, via different means. Him using his magical augury spells, me by looking at the patterns in the buildings. There, we said in unison, both of us pointing off the path towards a dense overgrowth. The party pulled the branches away, revealing ornate carvings around a cavernous opening. This was the entrance to the lost maze of trials. We made it, Mariko announced. He looked back over our small band. We had traveled for weeks through the jungle, following the clues to get here, but this was just the entrance to the maze. We still needed to fight our way to the fabled treasures which lay within. My venture was just beginning. This was An Eveningstar in the Jungle by Stefan Budansew. Stefan Budansew has been a storyteller his entire life. However, he only started writing the stories down in 2013. Initially encouraged by Nanowrimo, Stefan published his first short novel in 2015 and has several other works in progress. Look for Stefan to appear this fall in an upcoming anthology of urban fantasy thrillers, along with a few other authors who've appeared on Second Saga. Stefan has a love of science fiction, old-school tabletop gaming, and video games. He also assists with the 600 Saga podcast and encourages others to share all the stories which they keep inside. Visit stefanbudansew.wordpress.com for more. You can also purchase Immersion on Amazon or Kindle. Music is provided by Mads. Learn more about 600 Saga, our authors, how to submit your flash fiction, and how to support the podcast in the show notes. This has been Mariah Avix and 600 Saga.